Hi, my name is Mary Warren, and I am a forensic psychology journalist. And today I'll be discussing differential association theory, the dark triad of personality, and the prediction of antisocial behavior as based on a paper by Jakovic and Rowlands, 2024. So first we'll start with a bit of a theoretical background. So differential association is a theory coined by Sunderland in 1947 and states that criminal behavior can be learned through others' definitions of crime and personal definitions of crime, as well as through connections with others of similar beliefs. Previous research indicated a relationship between criminal attitudes and antisocial behavior, psychopathy, and recidivism. And the dark triad of personality consists of three overlapping but distinctive personality traits, and these include narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. One trait that has been shown to be a significantly strong predictor of antisocial behavior is psychopathy, and it has also been found to be a positive predictor for criminal behavior as well as the likelihood of being arrested or incarcerated for a criminal offence. And arguments have also been made for a two-factor model of psychopathy, where the trait is broken up into interpersonal and affective features, factor one, and lifestyle features, factor two. And previous research on this trait has shown that factor two's psychopathy is a much stronger predictor of antisocial behavior than factor one psychopathy is. So now we have a quick look at the hypotheses. So for this sort of analysis, we'll be focusing on third and fourth, which is the lifestyle features, as mentioned before, as well as the dark triad and differential association and how they predict antisocial behavior together. So a quick look at the methodology of this study. So 348 adult participants who are proficient in English were required for this study with a required sample size of 160. It was a non-experimental correlational design, and the sample was a convenient sample obtained through social media. Four measures were used in this study, and they were the dark triad dirty dozen, the Levinson self-report psychopathy scale, and differential association theory was operationalized from scales by Allred et al. 2000, and the deviant behavior scale by Rowlands and Allen, which was used to measure antisocial behavior in this study. And multiple regression and hierarchical regression analyses were used within this study. So a quick look at the results. So here we have the descriptive statistics and the bivariate correlations. And this is sort of the first two hypotheses results. So this shows that total psychopathy was the only significant predictor of antisocial behavior when in line with narcissism and Machiavellianism. And then this sort of looks at our hypothesis three. So in combination, factor one and factor two, psychopathy accounted for a significant 12.3% variability in antisocial behavior. And you can see here that factor two psychopathy was the only significant predictor. And then this looks at our fourth hypothesis. So step one indicated individual definitions and other definitions of crime accounted for a significant 15.2% of the variance in antisocial behavior. And in step two, the addition of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and total psychopathy accounted for an additional 6.8% of the variance and led to a significant increase in antisocial behavior. And then as we can see, so that in combination led to the five predictive variables explaining 22% of the variance. Individual and others definitions of behavior both positively predicted together. However, there was a much smaller effect in factor one psychopathy. And then when all traits are together, others definitions and total psychopathy were the only significant predictors. A quick look at the key conclusions from this study. So lifestyle features factor two were a significantly stronger predictor of antisocial behavior, again focusing on hypotheses three and four, and that Machiavellianism, total psychopathy, and narcissism predicted a significant amount of additional variance in antisocial behavior after accounting for those differential association features. So some lower tier critiques I had for this study was the variables were transformed. So there was a log transformation of the DBS, Machiavellianism, factor one psychopathy, and others definitions of crime. And so we must interpret these results with caution. This is mentioned by the researchers in the study, but it is a good thing to note that it is not the raw data, so it can be quite difficult to interpret those results. And then they also remove the criminal friend variable from the differential association measure. So this does lack that third part of differential association, which is quite a key part of differential association as well. So this is also mentioned by the researcher, but it may impact that definitions of crime variable. And then it was also a convenient sample, so it's very low generalizability as it was just obtained by social media posts. So some higher tier critiques I had was that it lacks theoretical depth of differential association as it feels brushed past in both the key conclusions and the hypotheses of the study. While the key results and hypotheses do discuss Differential association, I felt like a clear link really lacked there, and I felt quite confused as to what I was sort of looking at and why I was sort of looking at it in the discussion. I felt like it was sort of brushed past, and psychopathy was focused on a lot more rather than a key link with differential association as well. I'd also like to know the rationale behind the log transformation. So when studying antisocial behavior, it is generally expected to get a non-normal distribution, as those with antisocial behavior are not normal in our society if you're taking sort of from a general sample. So violations of normality and other sort of key factors can occur. So not that it's necessarily wrong, but they did say that they transformed it due to violations of normality. So I'd just like to kind of know what results led to that, as it's not made clear anywhere in the paper. And then the values for psychopathy also had a largely uneven amount, like distribution of questions. So factor one psychopathy had 16 questions compared to factor two psychopathy's 10 questions, which kind of makes me wonder if that had an effect in the results at all, as like any sort of slight variance in factor two psychopathy would have a much larger impact on the results than any sort of variance in factor one psychopathy. So some strengths for the article is that the article links the concepts of differential association, the dark triad, and antisocial behavior, which is the purpose of the article, but it's nice to see as it's a novel concept in this sort of field. A higher sample size leads to like a higher quality and reliability of the data, and it takes research on differential association and the dark triad at a specific prison population. So it's nice to see how this sort of manifests within the general population. I also like the change of the wording from criminal to antisocial, kind of taking that stigma away from these behaviors and leaning more into the antisocial side of these behaviors. So some real world and theoretical applications of this is that it gives us kind of a deeper understanding of antisocial behavior. So it really highlights how specific personality traits impact antisocial behavior and how this sort of accounts for like influence as well within society, really giving like psychologists and clinical professionals a much deeper understanding of how these traits occur and how we can put preventions and interventions in place to specifically combat these personality traits, leading to antisocial behaviors. It also leads to like better like crime prevention and rehabilitation, which also ultimately benefits society as it takes a lot of the danger out of society if we can help reduce antisocial behaviors, leading to a much safer society. So some further implications are also the results of this study can help researchers when investigating other theoretical perspectives, such as theories such as like critical theory, which discuss social hierarchies and how cultural norms influence behavior, very similar to how differential association works. And these learned behaviors are so important as these are the ones that can be prevented and interventions work better on versus those inherent behaviors. Therefore, it's really important for psychologists to understand how these occur in criminals and how these theories affect the world. And then these are some references from the paper as for the theoretical background. Thank you very much for listening.